for joining us, Siddha Jain from Inox. I want to go across now to our next special guest joining us on this broadcast, the Chairperson and Managing Director of Max Healthcare, Abhay Soy. But before I go across to Abhay, I want to show you this report on the R factor. The R factor is the reproduction rate, which is essentially the rate at which the infection spreads in our country. Now, the good news is that according to research done by biostatisticians in the University of Michigan, India's R factor, which is the rate at which the infection is spreading, has come down from 1.65 to about 1.18, which essentially means that the virus is now slowing down. And across the country, the R factor is now down to less than 2. A few weeks ago when I did the same story, remember, there were some states in the east where the R factor was close to 3 or above 3, which is very, very alarming. Now it's coming down, but are things improving in the hospital? We'll ask Abhay, who has hospitals across the country. But first, take a look at this report about how things could potentially, and I say this with a lot of caution, be getting better. Maybe, just maybe, we've reached a position we're about to turn across this bend.
India's effective reproduction rate, or R value, an indicator of how fast the infection is spreading, has reduced to 1.12 this week from 1.40 last week. This is an estimate of the number of people one COVID patient can infect. Even though India's active cases continue to increase, a reduction in R value indicates that the infection is spreading slower than before.
The drop in effective reproduction number means that the number of people who are getting infected from those who are already infected, that number is reducing, which means the rate at which the number of cases are spreading is going to decelerate. So for example, if 1,000 would have become 2,000 and then 4,000 cases, instead of that, from 1,000 it will become 1,200, then 1,400. So the speed of transmission will reduce, but the numbers will not immediately come down.
Experts say the R rate needs to be below 1% for us to heave a sigh of relief.
To say that the entire curve is flattened or we have gained some amount of control over this outbreak, the effective reproduction number should drop below 1. That's when we would have reached a reasonably manageable loads of cases.
India Today's Data Intelligence Unit has found that in the week beginning 3rd of May, R value for India has dropped to 1.12. 5 states have R value of less than 1. Among major states, Andhra Pradesh is the only one which has shown slight increase in R value in the ongoing week compared to the last week. Chhattisgarh, Delhi, Madhya Pradesh, Maharashtra, UP are among states where R value has dropped below 1 in the ongoing week. R value in Bihar have reduced to 1.14 after more than a month.
So R naught is actually a function of the number of tests that the states have been doing in our country. So if the R naught is actually falling, you shouldn't actually think that the epidemic is totally under control. We need to also have a look into different parameters, like especially the number of tests and the test positivity rate.
In simple math, if you have one patient infecting one person, then you have 2 patients a day. But if you have one patient infecting more than 2 people, then the cases will multiply to 4 and 8 and so on. In that sense, it appears that the R rate is reflective, or rather indicative of the fact that keeping people at home during the lockdown has helped. But experts say take this with a pinch of salt, because this depends on diagnosis via test. And these things are getting questioned in the country right now as to how effectively the testing is happening, how effectively the diagnosis is happening. In New Delhi, Sneha Mordani for India Today.
So Abhay Soy, not just do you run Max, you also track what's happening in other hospitals. Are we now reaching a position, Mr. Soy, where you think that we're about to turn this deadly corner, that all the deaths that have happened have now peaked out, and that from here in a few days onwards, do you buy the data which suggests that India could be beginning the long process of recovery?
So Rahul, I sort of agree and disagree at the same time. Agree as far as the infection rate in Delhi NCR is concerned. We do close to 4,000 RT-PCR tests a day. Even our results show the same thing, that the positivity rate has come down over the last 5 to 7 days. And, I think a large part of the credit goes to the lockdown that we had over here. Having said that, I think the worst in terms of mortality and deaths is yet to come. Because what you're going to see is, from the peak of the pandemic, which is 7 to 8 days ago, most people, there is a particular life cycle of the virus. Most people do get critical after 8 to 10 days, and we are going to see a lot more criticalities and perhaps mortalities at this stage. Because, when we hit the hump about a week back ago, those people will be coming in critical to hospitals right now. Having said that, I do believe that the positivity rate reduction in Delhi NCR will definitely lead over the next few weeks to lesser number of caseloads coming into hospitals. Having said that, again, it's perhaps not true for the rest of the country because the virus seems to be going to tier 2 cities, tier 3 cities. There is a positive healthcare infrastructure over there. So, we have to kind of chase the virus and perhaps do mini lockdowns over there in order to break the chain.
Okay. Now, the other critical question is about beds. For the longest time at hospitals such as yours, there simply have been no beds available, and in fact, even inside your hospitals, those who needed ICU care were struggling because the number of ICU beds was far lesser than the number of people who needed ICU critical care. What's the current situation? Are beds now available? When will beds be available? Will you be able to provide healthcare facilities to those who need it?
Rahul, while the beds have been available, they have been rendered unavailable because of lack of oxygen, as you're aware. Over the last, few days, the situation seems to have improved a little bit because you had the central government plug the gap by bringing in oxygen from outside the regular vendors and the regular supply lines that we have. And, over the next 8 to 10 hours, we will be looking at ramping up capacity. My only fear and hope at the same time is that, this added oxygen that we've got is sustainable, because obviously it's impossible to bring down capacity utilization or bring down the number of beds once you've already taken in the patients, because the average length of stay is 7 to 8 days. So we can't have a situation where we're going to move cautiously on this. We will ramp up capacity in the hope that this new supply lines and the fact that the central government has sort of plugged that, this continues.
Are things actually getting better? We just heard from the largest manufacturer of oxygen in India, that they've been able to ramp up production and that there's now massive logistics in place. And yet I see from the WhatsApp groups between hospitals and government, desperate SOSs still going out, appeals for oxygen, cries that oxygen levels are running out. So where is this gap between the manufacturers telling us that they're now producing enough to meet our current requirements and these hospitals turning around and saying that they have no oxygen available?
I think, first and foremost, the capacity has always been there in India, and I think, everybody's spoken about it, and it's a well-acknowledged fact that the production of oxygen is being there. The challenges were with respect to logistics, but I'm afraid the bigger challenges were with respect to communication. Communication from suppliers, etc., that adequate amount of oxygen or what the schedules for the oxygen would be, and so on and so forth. Over a period of time, that has got ironed out a bit, and I certainly hope that that continues, because it kind of just exaggerates the entire situation. Earlier we used to get our supplies once in 2 days, because the amount of consumption has gone up to about 4-folds. The supplies come twice a day now. So in 2 days they're coming 4 times. But what is required when you are doing such hand-to-mouth just-in-time inventory management at the back end? The communication needs to be absolutely spectacular, because without that it sort of leads to hoarding, be it in terms of beds, because you don't know whether those beds will be sustainable or not, whether the oxygen will come through or not, and so on. And eventually it's to the detriment of patients that you can't support patients while you have capacity in hospitals. Hopefully this is all behind us now, Rahul, like I said, and
you've been up several nights running. Describe to our viewers what's been happening at your hospital chain with this desperate plea for oxygen to come in, oxygen coming in at the last moment. What's it been like? Has it been like living a nightmare?
Well, it's been 24/7 crisis management. At night we are chasing tankers. During the day we chase tankers, and during the day we sort of arrange beds and everything to do with patients and people reaching out for beds, ICU beds, ventilators, ECMO machines, and so on and so forth. So it's been extremely challenging for healthcare management teams, ours as well as everybody else's out there. We actually have a central command of a unit which sort of follows and chases and escorts tankers which are coming to us from their source. Because we are worried whether the tanker will get waylaid or hijacked by some state and moved somewhere else and so on. All sorts of calls are going out. We have to reach out to people in the central government, in the state government, and so on. And I must say, everybody has been very receptive. But it's been chaotic, extremely chaotic over the last couple of weeks. And over the last 2 days, the SOSs and the number of calls have gone down because the situation has improved. We've got 7 hospitals in Delhi NCR, with a capacity of more than 3,000 beds. So it's been multiple balls in the air, Rahul. We catch one, the other one is about to fall, and so on and so forth. There have been multiple SOSs from our hospitals as well. But somehow we've been able to manage, by tweaking consumption, by reducing capacity, doing more discharges at some points of time, and so on and so forth. Borrowing, begging for cylinders from here and there from our peers, providing it to our peers as well. There have been multiple SOSs from our peers which have come to us where we've had to send them cylinders. So really doing these stopgap measures in order to just sort of keep the ship moving and keep the ball rolling over here. I certainly hope the worst is behind us on both counts. Number one, because of the positivity rate, the load on the hospitals will reduce. And secondly, because of the augmented supply, we will be able to serve better by increasing the number of beds.
What you're saying just sounds so scary. To actually be in that would have been just something completely different. I hope that we're over this crisis. But one of the big mysteries for me, Abhay, is about the difference between Delhi and Mumbai. If the cases peaked in Mumbai and they weren't able to augment hospital supply and bed supply either, why are patients in Delhi gasping for air? What is it about what's happening with the strain in Delhi that makes the case of Delhi so different from what we saw in Bombay? Is it inefficient management? Is it politics? What is it about why Delhi has just been so badly off?
There are many factors, Rahul. First and foremost, we have a hospital in Mumbai as well, which has been on COVID duty, and we have multiple hospitals in Delhi which have been doing the same. So first and foremost, I think the caseload in Mumbai was perhaps lower than Delhi. Secondly, the total number of oxygenated beds in Mumbai are again lower than less than half of perhaps what they are in Delhi NCR. The third aspect is Mumbai drains Mumbai. You seldom get patients from Pune, from neighboring cities of Nasik, let alone neighboring states of Gujarat and so on. Whilst Delhi doesn't only support Delhi, but the two sort of neighboring, the Tri-City, the two neighboring states, as well as a lot of people from Central India, North India, all the states, Northeast, and so on, do come to Delhi NCR for medical requirements because, this is where you have a disproportionate amount of medical infrastructure to be able to support that. But, what has been a tragedy is that we haven't been able to utilize this medical infrastructure for the benefit of all. So I think that's where the whole gap has been. But another aspect which you pointed out, again, is a bit of a mystery to us as well. We are doing these gross audits. We find that the oxygen requirement or the number of people who required oxygen in our Mumbai hospital has been lower than what it is in our Delhi hospital. Now, we are doing gross audits. It may be due to the epidemiology of the virus over there, perhaps a different strain, but the infection, the infectious load on lungs and otherwise seems to be higher. We're trying to sort of figure this out ourselves.
Let me just try and understand what you've said. You're saying if 100 patients ended up in hospital both in Mumbai and Delhi, the percentage of those who turned critical and required oxygen support is higher in Delhi than in Mumbai?
Absolutely. And the number of people who turned up in hospitals in Delhi, a lot more of those people seem to require oxygen whilst in Mumbai the number has been lower. Through medical support, we've been able to support those patients, and the oxygen requirement hasn't been that high for them. It's not only per patient oxygen requirement, but also the number of people who required oxygen in Mumbai vis-a-vis number of people who required oxygen in Delhi.
I'll leave it over there. We thank you and your teams for what everyone in the hospital sector has done. This has just been, a very, very bad month. And the good news is at least the data at this time is saying that things are likely to get better. It will take time for that to start showing up at the hospitals, but at least if the spread of the infection comes down, then the cases will come down in time. Abhay Soy, thank you very much for joining us on the News Track. I want to welcome now Professor Maninder Agarwal. Professor Agarwal is a member of the country's COVID-19 Supermodel Committee. He is a professor at the Indian Institute of Technology in Kanpur. And I want to talk to him about how much time it will take before we feel that this second wave is starting to end and that life gets better. We're being told by modelers and epidemiologists that we could potentially be at the peak. What are his estimates saying? But before that, I want to show you this report on Delhi versus Mumbai. The point that was just made about why is it that